You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Dean Johnson.
The AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California. Presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AFTERBUZZ TV's Downton Abbey After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Downton Abbey After Show.
Oh, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. Bing is for doing, and we are here doing another AFTERBUZZ TV after show for Downton Abbey Season 3, Episode 6. I'm your host, John Comerford, and I'm joined in the studio by Tamara Berg.
Hey, everybody.
And Alina Akram.
Hi, everyone.
And of course, helming us today is Marissa Serafini.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you, Marissa. Lots happening in this episode. Lots to get to. Let's see. Little baby Isobel becomes a Catholic.
Yes.
And Thomas makes a play for James while Edith becomes a journalist. But I want to start off with where we kind of left off last time. Free Bates. He's finally out. Thank God, because we were tired of the prison. Am I right? Was everybody in agreement with that?
I was over it.
Okay. You were over it about two episodes ago, I
Yeah,
assume.
you were, for sure.
It was good to see him out, though. It's good. And the warm welcome you got back from everybody.
Well, one of the things I loved about it was when he comes out the door and
Yeah.
he just looks perfect. He's the perfect Bates we've always, known and have been missing for the
Perfect
longest time.
manservant that we
Very
haven't seen.
tall and very dapper, wearing all the right things, and just thank God he's out of jail. He says thank God and thank you to Anna.
What about Anna? Yeah, thank God. Yeah. Her look, the way she was just bubbling over.
She has the best reaction.
She
no, doesn't she?
does.
It's so heartfelt. Like,
Yeah.
oh, Anna's happy.
Yeah,
again.
she makes me tear up a lot when
Oh,
she's
just- yeah, the way she
doing
does
this,
it, yeah.
because she's just so sincere and sweet and
so
gosh,
likable.
Yeah, gosh, was she happy to see her man out of jail?
Yeah.
Yes.
We were all happy
We
to
were
see her
all
man.
happy.
Do we
Yeah.
blame her?
No
No.
more Craig, no more of that stuff. So he's back in town. I should say back at Downton. And warm welcome back from just about everybody.
Almost.
Except maybe Thomas, because he's not sure how that's going to work out now, because I'm sure he's thinking that if Bates stays, I'm out.
Right, and that's what the conversation is. So it's trouble in Downton for him, at least.
Yeah. So what the other thing I thought was interesting is that they were all falling over him, fawning over him, giving him, getting him. And, even Molesley said, "Hey, can we all have some of that?" And for whatever reason, Bates is he's got this great. Well, they revere him so much, and
Yes.
part of it is just because of his history or his backstory. Because what has he done for them, to them?
Well, I feel like he's the male version of Anna. He's just always been really kind and fair, and that went for everybody in the house, besides Thomas, of course, who he had issues with.
Yep.
Speaking of issues, I'm having mic issues, so I'm sorry. I'm a little distracted. Well, I think also he's so revered by Lord Grantham that I think that gives him a lot of sort of credence with the rest of
Yeah.
the staff. Don't you think that's part of it?
Yeah, I'm sure that's kind of.
Especially Mr. Carson, because
Yeah.
Mr. Carson loves anybody the Lord and Lady loves.
Yeah.
That's true. That's
That,
very
and I also
true.
think that as much as that's true, and I agree with that. Also, Bates, as he is in the house, he fits Mr. Carson's model of what a
Right.
manservant to be a valet should
Right.
be. He knows the proper way to do everything, except for having the injury to his leg.
Bum
which he can't-
leg.
Yeah, exactly. Anything. But he knows how to handle himself. He knows how to handle Lord Grantham, and he does everything the way he should be done. So that's why Carson, I think, goes for him like crazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because he's
Yeah.
just right all the time.
So of course he and Anna are looking for
cottage.
cottages. Yeah.
Well, because it's not proper for them
I
to
know.
not be living together
of course,
and
and they can't live together in a house.
in the house, because that's
Yeah.
weird,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, it's not weird to have people just living there anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
I wonder why the Crawleys can do it, but they can't. Like Mary and Matthew live there together as husband and wife.
Yeah.
Obviously, Lord
Well,
Grantham
obviously
and Cora.
different rules for the downstairs people, but
Yeah. Well, I think also it's just they need more space than they would get in a single room
Sure.
downstairs. I think it's really just a space issue more than anything. And plus, because both of them are so well liked by the family,
Right.
they're going to do a little extra for them.
And they have the male dormitory area and the female dormitory area, and I guess they don't mix those. But you'd think that there's got to have
Fraternization.
Well, not only that, but that the people who work for them, they're married, and they've probably been married to each other who work at the house. So
Sure.
Isn't there some section for the married couples?
There probably is.
There probably
but
is. That
no, they're gonna
Mr.
get 'em.
Carson has closed off.
So they're getting a whole cottage.
He doesn't want people to be distracted.
Yeah,
Exactly.
from their work, yeah, clearly. Because he doesn't even want Alfred to go to the movies.
I know.
So,
All right, I'll let you go.
yeah. All right. So, so that was all that was to that storyline. We're glad to see.
We're just
Bates
glad
out.
he's back.
We're glad Anna's happy. And we're gonna see how that plays out. Of course, we think, Grantham's gonna get his job back, right?
Yeah, but
Sure.
they won't be happy for long. There's
No,
got to be
of
something
course,
that'll
yeah.
crush us.
I'm just so glad they didn't dwell on the whole jail thing and
Yeah.
actually show us, the struggle to get him out or the process to.
Yeah.
I was so over it. I was like,
Yeah, we really just
Yes.
wanted him back in the house.
exactly.
Yeah, but I'm glad they took him out for a while. I mean, we can debate how it was too long, it was too short, whatever. But I'm glad it was away from the house, just because it was nice to be out somewhere else and seeing the difference between how people live and that time. But anyway, that takes us to Edith, because that's our other storyline that was come over from yesterday. Is she going to become a journalist? Is she going to take the gig? She finally goes to London to see the editor. What do we think of him? Seemed like a stand-up guy.
Yeah,
right?
he seemed nice enough.
Nice enough chap.
As soon as I saw him, I was like, oh, something's going to be happening
Yeah,
here.
Yeah,
little
of
thing there.
course.
It looks like he definitely is interested in her.
Yes. And
Yeah, he's effusive with his praise of her.
Oh, yeah.
And he, I think probably a little more familiar than a public person should be. And I mean public, I mean
Yeah.
not a lord or lady, should be with a lady.
So it's not just because he wants her to work for him. You definitely felt it was because he has some sort of.
He
feeling
doesn't
for her.
strike me the way the newspaper man did,
Oh, sure.
in terms of being, a player, a manipulator. He doesn't seem that. It seems like he may have romantic intentions with her.
I think they got to
I
go
think,
somewhere like
right?
that, right? But then, of course, that's going to be ruined. There's going to be something that's
Well,
going to make that work.
if her former fiance was too old for her, this guy's probably too old for her as well. Not that he's as old, but
and to make it worse, like you said, he's not a lord.
right.
He's
Journalist.
a journalist.
Good
God
heavens.
forbid.
The way the dowager, when she announced that she was going to be a journalist at dinner, it's like, it was such shock, but having a journalist. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, and Lord Grantham automatically scolds Matthew for even encouraging her
Right.
at the breakfast table. So
And Matthew's been encouraging her for weeks on this.
I know, but it's the same argument they've been having.
Right.
well, that
encouraging.
tension is getting worse and worse between them. So
Yeah.
another reason to hate Matthew.
I mean, is she just going to write articles from being a lady, what it's like in that world? I mean, what
That's
is-
a good question. I
Yeah.
wonder what
Like
she
what-
is going to write about
yeah.
because Lord Grantham is saying, "Oh, they just want you because you are
and
titled."
and that's got to be part of it. Why else would you hire her?
Sure.
Right.
'Cause she has no background in it per se. So
Right.
the reason why you're hiring her is because she has that cachet.
Well, I was also curious to know if they were going to assign her stories like
Right.
a legitimate newspaper or. Well, you know what you're
Well, I
doing.
think she's doing
You've
a
never
column.
written a story in your life, but go ahead and pick
I'm
the
Lady
subject.
Edith on the Parliament beat.
Well, she's doing a column,
Yeah, I know.
Yes,
so it's I can't. I don't know. Dear Abby,
Yeah,
I guess.
it'd be interesting to see what she
dear
does.
Edith.
All right, so the other thing
Which
that
fork do I use at this meal?
yeah, well, maybe
She would know.
Or the article she'll write is how the changing times and how to modernize the aristocracy.
Right.
Who knows? Maybe she'll.
Well,
do
that would be
As
interesting.
they're
That'd be
going
interesting.
through it.
Exactly.
That would be interesting.
So,
We'll
all
see.
right, well, that takes us to Thomas. So
The
we've been
scandal of
I know
Thomas.
we've been
you
talking
mean?
about this for weeks. Of course, they've been furthering the storyline as we go, and we know that O'Brien's got some sort of horrible scheme up her sleeve.
Yes, she does.
And even today, when we first saw Jimmy and Thomas talking, you see her lurking in the background. You could just see her walking
Lurking.
by the doorway.
Lurking as always.
She's too good at that.
What's her first name? Lurk? Or Lurk?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Lurking O'Brien.
Something like that.
Yeah. So, but okay. So the whole thing, she keeps feeding them in his ear, trying to say that James is. Oh no, he really has fancied you. He fancied you or whatever. But when we actually make the trip in there, and they're doing all the montage about Alfred coming up the stairs.
Yes.
Jimmy is asleep in his bed. Thomas he's frustrated.
He's
Should
stewing.
I go in? Should I? Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
I'm going, please don't, please don't, please don't.
I know.
And then
you
when
could
he's
just
in the room, and he goes in the room, I say, no, no, no.
of course, yelling at the television,
Yes.
don't do it.
Were you guys feeling the same way?
I felt the same way, and I felt bad for Alfred because his reaction was just like he looked like he saw a ghost.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, mortified, horrified, terrified, all the
Terrified is a good
fides.
one.
Yeah.
It was, oh, Brian.
But I mean, how desperate? I mean, because I'm sure obviously Thomas has had a thing for James, and
Right. Well, everybody has a thing for James.
Well, that's true. But and we've seen him, at the clock. They were, touching too much, and he's always been too close. But I'm going, how desperate? And that's the thing I was interested in is that Thomas looks so desperate in his room. He looks so lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And then how desperate do you have to be to go in somebody's room and the guy's asleep and you sit on the bed and just kiss him?
yeah.
I couldn't imagine doing
I mean,
that.
just because O'Brien says a couple things.
Well, she was going on. She
Yeah.
was feeding his fantasy, is
Well,
what
yeah.
she was.
Sure.
And he said it to Mr. Carson. He said, well, when you're in my position.
Right, you have to learn to read the signs.
Exactly.
He misread those signs.
Jeez, he did.
His gaydar's not that good.
Not good
Turns
gaydar.
out.
Not good gaydar. But it was really scandalous, and it was just mortifying, as I said, because we have to realize that, yes, there's the issue of James not being gay and being mistaken for gay. So that's
Sure.
one, big misunderstanding that's really difficult to deal with. But this was a crime. It was a crime to be gay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back then, punishable by prison terms,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And
Well, until late 1800s, it was a capital crime. And then they changed it to 10 years.
right,
because
because you could serve, you could go to prison for life for being gay.
Yeah,
back
exactly.
then.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So this was, really serious on a lot of levels for a lot of people. And so the idea of Thomas, trying to figure things out, there's the whole extra layer beyond the scorn and the people talking about it being unnatural and all of that. There's the whole, criminal element that he's lonely. Because there are a lot of layers between you and getting what you want.
What I found so interesting is that there wasn't any time between really. Oh, he likes me,
Right.
and
I agree.
to find out before he went in while the guy's asleep and kisses him. There was no.
Right.
What are you thinking?
Yeah. Initially, he even tells O'Brien, Jimmy's a ladies' man.
Yeah,
Like,
Right.
yeah.
Get up, leave me alone.
I know, but that's what I'm saying is that he allowed himself that denial, that delusion to think, okay, I shouldn't find out in some other fashion before I go in there and kiss him. What?
Well, we see a vulnerable Thomas this whole,
Yeah.
these past few episodes because
Yes.
they're trying to make him more likable. We've hated him
for
I have
so long.
for so
Yeah.
long.
The entire series.
Yeah, we
But-
talked about that last week about how they're turning him likable, which makes
But
it
I'm
even more.
starting to feel bad, and
Yeah.
and we see that he is desperate and he is vulnerable. So
But that's what I thought they handled it well, because in other hands it wouldn't have been as well received, I should say, because it's hard to believe that somebody wouldn't take steps in between hearing about that and going, "Oh, really?"
especially
and then kissing him in the bedroom.
and Thomas knows Mrs. O'Brien better than anybody.
Yeah.
You would assume that he wouldn't be manipulated that
Yeah, I
easily
mean,
Right.
by
It was,
her.
it was a few short
Right.
months ago that she said that she was going to get a revenge on him.
Yeah.
In some,
Yeah.
no uncertain terms.
Right.
So,
But when you're down,
and that's
I
how
don't know,
desperate
yeah,
he is.
yeah, exactly. Desperate, down, broken.
And I just felt horrible when he was getting the dressing down from Carson.
Oh my
I
gosh.
I don't want to hear
I
about
do
that.
not wish to take a tour of your revolting world.
oh, I wrote that too. So sad.
Yeah.
Hard to watch. Hard to watch.
And how different, it's not that much different than calling him an abomination as somebody who's revolting, or the world is revolting. Not that much different.
I thought it was interesting that he didn't deny anything and
No.
he was very honest and upfront
And made sure that it was all on him. It wasn't on Alfred or James.
absolutely.
Right.
So,
Which is different for him because in the
Yeah.
past he would
Yeah.
have done all sorts of shenanigans to
Right.
get out of something, as we've seen over and over again. So that was interesting.
So is it because he's been a valet to Lord Grantham that he's filling those shoes differently now? Because what do you think?
Something's changed. It's not the horrid Thomas we're used
Because
to.
we certainly would expect that of somebody standing up and saying no, it wasn't anybody else's mind. And
Right.
Bates would do something like that.
Right.
Not the offense, so to speak, but he certainly would he would make sure that nobody else was in trouble for it.
Right.
So this is unheard of for Thomas. And
So
we've never
he's
seen
sort
him
of-
anything like this.
Right, becoming a more upstanding citizen.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, is it because he's having to stand in for Bates and have more responsibility there, all that kind of stuff?
Maybe that's the case. Maybe that's the case because he's just sort of lived in that world for a longer time now, and
maybe the Honorable Lord Grantham rubbed off on him.
Maybe so. Maybe so. I want to talk about the line that Mrs. Hughes said. Carson says, "Human nature."
Oh,
it's a funny business. And Mrs. Hughes, with one of the great lines of the show tonight. Why didn't the poets come to you, Mr. Carson? They'd have saved themselves a lot of time and trouble. Hilarious.
Very dry.
I love her.
Yes,
she's great.
Listen. Let's take a break real quick. Let's talk about everybody writing in their comments. We appreciate that, and we have a few. Tammy, what you want to mention?
Yeah, we want to thank Egret9 on iTunes for your comments. Also, Aaron McShef. Thanks. I don't have nails to pick, but I had noisy jewelry on last week, and so I'm not wearing jewelry anymore on the show. So, but thank you for your comments. And Nikki in DC, thank you so much for your comments on iTunes, you guys. We really appreciate it.
That's right. So, please go to iTunes, download the podcast, tell a friend, so we can keep growing here. We've got 60 shows. I'm sure you'll find something you like. We're also doing movies now as well. We've got that happening. And just tell a friend, download, keep your rating and commenting going, and we'll keep trying to answer those as we can.
I also want to thank the Twitter followers as well. Suddenly my phone's not working. Let me see here. Mary Fegley and New Zealand Mom and a bunch of you for retweeting our show and letting people know about our podcast. We really appreciate your following and helping us out with that. Free Bates.
All right, let's get into Ethel. Because I thought this was a very interesting story. Obviously they're carrying this one over too, but we had a little bit more meat to this one because it got more players in the mix here. Because last week we had the Dowager sitting at luncheon at Isobel's and not wanting to leave when Lord Grantham bursts in and says, "All right, everybody out of here, but there's a hooker here."
Right.
And so they start off with and Isobel was saying the same thing. In fact, we even discussed that. It's like, why would she not leave? And she even says what we were talking about, which was that she thought it would be wrong to leave to cause a bigger ruckus than there was.
And because it's a shame to miss a good pudding.
Yes, exactly. And it would be an insult.
Right. It would be an insult to Isobel.
Right.
I can't believe that I was fooled. For a second, I thought she was changing.
We talked about that.
Yeah.
I fell for it.
Yeah.
But so she talks about how having Ethel there puts the family in a miasma of scandal, I think was what she said, right?
Yeah.
I love
I wrote that to miasma. Damn, good words.
That is good.
And it's tainted them all. So then she sets about changing all that. And of all people, she asks Edith to help her out.
Yeah.
I thought that was a weird play.
Well, I didn't realize what she was asking for.
Right.
I didn't put two and two together. And then once I found out what she was doing, it made a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Why Edith? Because I didn't get why Edith. Why use Edith to do that? As opposed to Mary or Cora or...
Well, she's going to go work for her newspaper. Might as well put in some advertisements.
I think it might have been that she was going to ask whoever she was going to ask, but it turned out Edith needed a favor from her, and so that was just a return the favor sort of situation. She probably could have asked either girl.
Yeah, okay. But I was wondering if there was more to it, like Edith somehow is an inside track with Isobel or something like that. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think
it was just the other, because obviously I got that part, but I was just
I think it was just a
secret thing.
I think it was a circumstance thing.
So, and it worked. Well, of course, that helped to have Mrs. Hughes gang up, so it was like the four of them against her, against Isobel.
Well, and it was so interesting to me how exactly what Isabel's reaction was. I can't believe you people have been creating all these backroom deals.
I was like, what? That's what they all do. That's all they do.
Well, yeah, good point. But the putting an ad in the newspaper, that's kind of a little further along than I'm going to have you do this and I'm going to have you do that.
Yeah, but
I mean, I agree. That was a bit much.
Well, yeah, but it's not much for the Dowager. That's what she does.
Yeah.
And she does it all the time. And so I was like, what are you shocked by?
Yeah. I'm sure. I know you're right. No, I'm not fighting you. It's just a bummer because
it's just like a fresh slap in the face each time.
All right.
That's it. That's it.
It's always a little shocking.
A fresh slap in the... There you go. Yes, it is. So. A fresh slap and then Dowager slaps. Nice.
But I really could see Mrs. Crawley's, Isabel's, challenge when she's talking to all of them and trying to trying to actually, that's not what I wanted to, I actually meant to talk about Mrs. Hughes. Mrs. Hughes, sort of seeing both sides of the coin and saying, look, here's the deal. The bottom line is she ever going to be able to escape her past in this village where everyone's going to know, and they are going to throw scorn at her and create problems for her? So perhaps reluctantly, she almost said, maybe she should go find life in another town.
Yeah, and Mrs. Hughes always the pragmatist. It's definitely here. But I thought was interesting is that because Isobel, let's put it this way, her argument was, well, she shouldn't have to live like this. She's made a mistake. She's trying to turn over a new leaf, all that kind of stuff. She's doing all the things right.
Yes.
And Isabel's just fighting the convention, the tradition, and instead of saying, you know what, you were right, and putting the weight of the dowagership behind all that, she of course reverts to it's the scandal that we shouldn't have to be touched by. So
that's what you think Mrs. Hughes was coming
that's
from?
what I think the dowager.
Oh, I see. Got it.
If she had said, you know what, because the dowager, if she had gotten behind the efforts of turning Ethel's life around and going to those people and scorning them who had turned Ethel away,
right?
That would have been the thing you would hope for, because then but of course she's not going to, because that's not who the dowager is.
No.
But that would have been interesting. The fact that they didn't do anything like, because she's more interested in removing the thing that's of a distaste, shall we say, rather than changing everybody up.
And the only way for it to have changed would be for the dowager to have to go to bat for Ethel, with each. Because we've already seen it happen with Mrs. Bird, and then we saw it with the other woman in the in town. So it would have taken that kind of effort, and she's not up for it. She's an old lady. But I have to say that she could have had Ethel removed in a much less kind way.
Oh yeah.
She could have just unceremoniously told Mrs. Crawley that she's out, she's over, it's done. Yeah. And not done the.
Taking the extra step.
Right, taking the extra step to try and get her something else, which is, relatively kind way to deal with it, I must say.
For the dowager, it was kind.
It was
For her,
No, you're right. Yeah,
and in the end of the day, we see how she does struggle in town. She comes home crying. So let's be reasonable. Maybe this is the best.
Yeah, instead of changing everybody else's mind, let's just have her a fresh start somewhere else where they don't know her history. Like, they're not going to find out her history there.
I know.
Somehow they always
They don't
do.
have cell phones
I know,
and the internet
but
there.
they always do. It always happens.
Well, let's just hope they won't, because people can also reinvent themselves in those times.
Then why do you think Isobel didn't bring it up to Ethel, the whole thing? Because she was started to when she went home after it was all decided that this was going to happen, and she starts to bring it up to Isobel,
and then just asks, "Are you happy?"
Just, "Are you happy?" And of course she says, "Well, compared to what I was doing, yeah." But why didn't she just? Why did she not bring it up?
I don't know. I think maybe she was just sort of sleeping on it and seeing if I were her, that's sort of where I would be. You're caught between a rock and a hard place, and you need to give it a think and see if maybe there's another alternative, and if this is the best thing for her. Because I would bet Mrs. Crawley, Isobel, would come through and go, no. I'm not gonna boot her just because you're telling me I have to. I could see her actually do it. I don't think she's going to in this situation.
No, I don't.
But if she did decide that, I could see her going up again, because she said, I find what you say offensive, or whatever it was she said.
And she stood up before and things like that. And thank God she has, because it's nice to see one person do something like that.
Yes.
But I also think, for Isobel, she's always got a pet project. Whether it's
you're right,
and it's not always a pet project. Sometimes it's a huge thing like the hospital or whatever.
You're right.
But she always has something that she's fighting for.
Yeah.
And and I thought it was a valiant fight. With the whole Ethel thing, wanting to change it all around and all that stuff. And I like her being that. So if they're taking Ethel away, she's got to find another thing to fight for.
Well, she'll find some poor downtrodden soul.
She won't stay still. She'll be.
No,
she'll
she
find
will be
something.
fine.
She will.
Maybe she can help Edith.
Maybe she can.
Poor
with
Edith.
her journalism.
Poor Edith.
Oh, you mean find another guy?
Love, life,
I see.
everything.
Okay, she's gonna become a yenta or something.
Jilted at
And
the
she's
altar.
not
Edith.
cut out for domestic life.
Yeah. All right. Well, it was good to see. I'm glad. And do we think Ethel's gonna? I know this is predictions, but do we think Ethel's gonna find another place? You think she's gonna go for it? Then when Isobel finally breaks it to her, hey, we're gonna find another place.
It'd be the reasonable thing.
Well, I can't see. What's she gonna say? No, don't fire me. She'll go. She'll find something.
Yeah.
She's a pragmatist about the fact that she came from another life, and yes, she was hopeful that something else would happen, which is why she was crying in the street when she'd been shunned by the villager,
turned away, spurned.
But she knows where she came from, and she knows that she's fighting an uphill battle at this point. So I think she'll keep moving forward and keep trying to figure it out.
Okay. Now, speaking of that, then let's move on to the Lord Grantham and the Downton and Matthew trying to figure out the whole way to make Downton survivable or flourish, so that there's a history left for their children.
Oh, Lord Grantham.
I know,
He's sure feeling sorry for himself.
You know, it's interesting.
He sure is.
He is. But not only that, everybody has, they like Cora, Dowager, sometimes they all talk about, please, and even Mary, what are we going to do with poor father? Please bring father along.
He's babied.
I was like, why are they treating him like such a wuss? He's not a baby.
He is babied.
No, he is he is baby, but he's not a baby. I mean, I don't know why they're teaching, dealing with kid gloves. They're all so worried about him. Like he's going to be crushed by this.
Well, he's worried about himself more than anybody. We see him whining and crying about this. I don't know.
Well, I just think he's got first of all, I have no idea the pressure or stress it would be to be the lord of some place and supposed to be responsible for not only this land, but all these people and their jobs. And even Cora said, we're responsible for Tom now.
Right.
So they're responsible for everybody. In their mind, that's where they grew up. They're responsible.
Right.
You're the ones. So to be under that kind of pressure and have you failed at it, and then not knowing the way through into this new world.
Well, I think a lot of the problem for him is that he's coming from this place of an aristocrat. He's coming from, he's lived his whole life knowing that this was going to be his future. He was always going to be Lord Grantham of Downton Abbey.
Right.
And so now the world is coming in and presenting a complete paradigm change for him.
Yeah.
And he's never lived anything but this. He doesn't have an outside experience like Matthew does. He doesn't have, anybody really coming into his life except for Matthew, challenging and giving him options. And so, of course, he's going to come from fear because he doesn't know what it is that's facing him, and also he just plain is ignorant. And I don't mean that he's an idiot. I just mean he doesn't have experience. He's unaware of what other possibilities there are.
And I thought they used Jarvis well to highlight that, because
Yes.
Jarvis is 40 years at this job, and he was his dad's
agent.
Mm-hmm. And to hear Lord Grantham talk to him and saying, "Oh, come on, if I can listen to it, so could you." And let's, we have to think to the future, that kind of thing.
Yes.
I'm going, finally, they got somebody even more staid and set in his ways than Lord Grantham. So it kind of was helpful to help him move along like that, using Jarvis. By the way, great name, Jarvis. 40-year-old agent. Wow, I mean,
40 years
been an agent for 40 years.
as the agent
Yeah,
to the estate.
God. And so, just set in his ways.
Yeah.
The old broom, as he called himself.
Well, and to the point where he will not be changed.
Well,
and would
at
rather
this point,
leave.
he's institutionalized. He can't.
Yes.
I don't think he can.
Yes.
That's it.
Right.
So.
Well, and Lord Grantham has to make a choice, so
Yeah.
he can't walk away from this, really.
I thought Cora's line was the best for him. Is that, she's talking. They're in the bedroom in the same bed, so they're back in bed. So
Everything's-
there you go. But
we are not unhappily married. People like us.
She says that he's been telling everybody that Downton is now a dual monarchy, and
Yes.
she goes, "It never dawned on me that you would be lying," or what? She didn't say it that way.
You
but she
didn't mean
basically-
it.
You didn't mean it. Yeah. And I think that's the case. Is that, look, you've been telling Matthew like crazy. And Mary has told Matthew to get involved, and everybody's been wanting this to happen, and it's finally happening. And of course, all the growing pains, everybody's getting ticked at it.
Right.
So it's good to see that Cora says that. But it was nice to see them back together too.
Talk is cheap.
Yep. So and of course their plan. Now we saw this weeks ago when they first started, deciding what they're gonna do with Tom, and going, and dropped in the little hints about his grandfather being
a sheep farmer.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going, well, who's gonna finally get wise to that?
Right.
Why did it take the dowager?
Right.
Like, all
Right.
these great minds,
Right.
finally she dawns on her.
Well, the other thing is that, again, why couldn't Lord Grantham see through it enough to go, hey, here's a way to keep my granddaughter here in town?
Duh.
Duh, indeed.
So why'd that take so long?
But did Lord Grantham really want Tom to stay? I feel like he was.
But he did want the baby to stay, of course.
Sure.
You know, of course, he wanted the baby to stay not as a Catholic, but you know, as an
a left-footer?
Anglican. Yeah, he didn't want a left footer in that family. But you gotta want the kid. But I mean, the way the dowager did the whole thing about you want her to live above a garage with the gorilla.
The drunken gorilla.
Drunken gorilla. Thank you very much. Talking about really knowing the buttons to push for her son.
Oh,
Yes.
I mean, like,
Yes.
That was
Well, I'll do it as long as you'll accept that you are going to be.
Yeah,
You
the
know,
two-
you're
yeah,
going to take the blame.
It's two
in
conditions.
The end.
Yeah, it's two conditions. As long as Matthew agrees, and as long as
Yes.
when
You take
when
the
it all
fall.
goes, no,
Yeah.
well, not you take the fall,
But-
you admit that you were wrong.
Right. Excuse me. You're
Yeah.
right. Yes.
Dowager's line after that was the best.
Well,
though.
do you remember what it was? I
She
can't
said something like, "Well, I'm never wrong." So.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's
I'll
It's
never-
Sure,
an
I'll
easy
accept
caveat
it.
to make because I'm never
Yeah.
wrong. Yeah. But so, and then, you know, Murray was back in it. So I don't know what the plan is. I can't go. I mean, but it involves obviously modernizing. And as soon as they start talking about modernizing and new machinery and all, I could just see Lord Grantham in his head just going, what? Because, I mean, they had a hard time with the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But Murray says past is not much of a model, so get with
Yeah.
it.
And that was great to hear the history, too, that
sorry.
the Downton has been in decline for
Three
three
earls.
earls so
Yeah.
far.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that was common.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but it would have to be such a difficult thing to do. I had a friend who lived outside of London, and her address. I've had several friends that had these odd addresses. She
Right.
lived in the Dairy Cottage.
Okay.
At the blah blah at the blah blah at the blah blah in this town. You know, so there
That's
were
the
no
address?
numbers. Her
Yeah.
address was Dairy Cottage, such and such, you know, castle in such and such county in this town in England.
Wow.
That was the
And
address.
so I've stayed in the Dairy Cottage. I slept in the Dairy Cottage, and it's very cute and very adorable. But you know, 150 years ago,
Yeah.
it was where they kept the cows, or where they kept the milk after they milked the cows.
Okay.
You know, and so my point is that all of these great estates, you know, in today's times, because you can't really tear them down, they get sort of parsed up and become other things, and eventually this became a little house that somebody could rent. You know, because you can't afford to keep the place up. It costs millions of dollars to keep these places
and that goes
heated
to-
and from falling apart.
And that goes to another point. What kind of wealth must they
Have they
had?
possessed at that time?
Yeah.
To have I mean, they're in charge of the entire county, shire, whatever.
Shire,
Yeah, exactly.
right.
I mean, and to own it all.
Right.
What kind of wealth did Cora have?
Yeah,
Because they mentioned
to save it.
To be able
know,
to
well,
save it all after
yeah.
a decline of 2 earls.
Sure.
J.P. Morgan kind of wealth, I guess.
I guess, yeah. Fascinating stuff. Fascinating
Wow.
stuff.
So, you know, and then finally, of course, Tom agrees to stick around. So we knew it was going to happen. We were postulating that a couple weeks ago, and thank God that's going to happen. So we'll see how baby Sybil grows.
Yeah.
So what are we? Oh, the last thing. Speaking of the christening.
The christening.
So sweet.
Yeah, and of course we get to meet the brother, Branson's bro, Kieran.
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 Kieran the
Oh,
rough diamond.
Kieran.
Yeah. And this is just some weird. This has nothing to do with anything. But his name was Kieran, which is obviously a traditional Irish name. But because he wanted a beer so bad, I couldn't get out of my mind Kieran beer. I just don't know why.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah. Well, and I love the way they introduced him. He's a rough diamond, and of course Mary says, "Well, I'm very fond of diamonds." But then when they show him downstairs,
Oof.
you know,
Yucking it up with the servants.
yeah, and everybody loves him. He's the life of the
We
party.
love Kieran.
Yeah, exactly. Well, how about Thomas stepping up? Not Thomas. Excuse me, Tom Branson.
Yes.
Yeah.
You will
Carson.
not disrespect my
Yeah.
mother.
She was kind enough to offer him an invitation. You'll not snub her. No, get moving.
Well, I just thought that was lovely and a nice turn
was.
and
It
endeared
was.
him to lots of people, and except for maybe Kieran. And you know, it shows that he's negotiating his way through the halls of Downton Abbey, so to speak.
It's a tough road too, because
Yeah.
it's a fine line for him. He's still trying like crazy. You can see him hanging on to his dignity or what he considers his principles.
Yes.
And still trying to fit in with the family, even though his wife is no longer around. And you think, and more than anything, I think he's just doing it in her memory.
Yeah.
Because he even says that. Remember that what he says to Lord Grantham about who's coming to the christening? They're all at the dinner table, and you know Mary's gonna go, and who else is going? And Dowager says, "I'll go if Tom wants me," and of course, and Lord Grantham says, "No, I'm not going. He won't. Tom wouldn't want me there."
Yeah.
And the way he said that, he goes, "No, but Sybil loved you and she would want you there.
Yes.
But the way he said it, not even just what he was saying, I was going, there you go.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, he wasn't being manipulative.
No.
He was being generous.
Yeah.
Very
And
genuine.
honoring the memory and the wishes of his wife.
Yeah. It's just,
He's becoming really likable as well.
isn't he? Because he was such kind of a, all right, get off it. You know, he's
Mm-hmm.
always so angry and,
Yeah, and
you know. And, yeah,
to the degree he was selfish about.
Yeah. And I'm
know.
more interested now in his principles and what he believes in than I used to be because he's off his
Sure.
soapbox every time.
Yeah.
Well, I am. He just comes from a different place now.
Yeah.
So. Or anyway. So, and what do we think of the christening?
Oh, well, we didn't really see the christening, but
No, we just saw the photographs after the family photos
That was
afterwards.
so hilarious with the dowager and the Lord Grantham and the priest.
And the priest.
and let's bring the priest in, shall
yeah.
Their faces.
we? Had a couple comic moments
They
Lord
did.
Grantham did in this
Yeah.
episode.
And Cora poking fun of him, and then
Yep.
What was that last line? The way they ended the show was awesome.
Are you
afraid to be converted while you're
Yeah.
not looking?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
theme.
Well, and again, costumes beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
You know, hats
Uh,
beautiful. The montage of the
sisters,
not the
looked
montage.
ama- well, the two sisters of mom, they look great.
They looked beautiful.
I feel like their costumes are changing with the times a little bit more.
Yeah.
I
You
noticed
see
it this episode.
Really?
Yeah.
Just the color, or do you mean the whole fashion? You can see the trending.
It's kind of changing with the hats and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I think it's also the season as well because we've
Sure.
been seeing the heavy coats and dark colors and that sort of thing, and we're maybe getting into spring now. And
Yeah.
I didn't notice.
I'm
it at
also
all.
thinking a little bit ahead. I'll mention it next episode.
Oh.
What I noticed costume wise. Sorry.
look at you.
Anything else you guys want to talk about that we haven't covered?
I just
Oh, you know what we didn't talk about is the whole Daisy, Ivy, James, Alfred going out on a date and the whole thing.
Oh,
That
Alfred.
craziness. Yeah. Poor, I just going, Alfred, give it up. It's not gonna happen.
Give it up. I feel so bad when he's questioning Ivy and
Yeah.
he's like, well, if you knew Jimmy didn't like you,
Yeah.
and she's like, I'd have to hear it from his mouth.
Yeah. And then and also Ivy, James is not gonna go for you.
yeah,
It's
for
not happening.
God's sake, move on, people. Turn the page.
But there is no other options. They live, eat, and breathe that place. They get a half day off.
yeah, like
So
you're gonna
where
go
else-
out and find a man. at the-
Exactly.
yeah.
It's not like they can just go to the city.
Right.
So this is it. The only people they meet are the people downstairs.
That's right.
Well, I
Unless
wish
they go to some fair,
Alfred would just look at Daisy too.
Yeah. Well,
Poor Daisy.
yeah.
Poor
Oh.
Daisy.
I thought that she went after him, saying, "Look, even in front of everybody." The way Daisy
Yeah.
said that. Yeah. She doesn't look. She doesn't think of you that way. Look what she says about you. And
You're
why do
still
you go to the
taking her
movie?
to the pictures.
Yeah. And I was thinking the same thing. What are you doing?
He needs a little more pride. Where's your dignity, Nat?
That's right. Where'd you leave
Exactly.
it?
Exactly.
It's in some other livery. Well, go get it.
I left it in the pocket.
Exactly. Oh my God.
Also, the conflict about being the first server, I believe, between him and
Oh yeah.
Jimmy or
Alfred
James.
finally gets a shot.
I know that was kind of
Little
tricky.
underhanded.
of James to place the spoons and
Yeah. But he didn't mean it.
No, I
Yeah.
can't believe
Sure
that
you
you would think I
didn't.
did.
Yeah. So what do you think? O'Brien rubbing off on him?
yeah, it must be.
Maybe so.
I mean, it's so funny how they just fight tooth and claw for
Well,
their
because
little
again,
positions.
position,
Yeah, I know.
power. There's
I know.
very little of any of the things
Exactly.
there. There's not a lot to live for
just
downstairs.
grabbing whatever turf they can.
If we're gonna have a Sweet Thomas, we need another
That's true.
Villain.
villain. I was gonna say a-hole, but
Yeah, but I don't think they're not gonna turn Thomas completely.
No.
Nah, I don't think so.
still got it
'Cause
in
he still
him.
got to because that's a lot to overcome. I mean, let's face it. The way we thought of him, last season. Remember?
Yeah. No.
No,
yeah.
you can't
So, I mean,
forget that.
to turn him that. I mean, that would be a tough job. I mean, they go. I wish them well. Go ahead and try.
Let's do some news,
News.
shall we?
Oh,
I love
before we
your
do
news.
news, I
Let's
want
Oh,
Marissa
I'm
to
sorry.
tell us.
Beg your pardon,
Marissa,
Marissa
you have
has
something to
say.
share with us.
We just launched this new thing at AfterBuzz TV. We have AfterBuzz TV merchandise.
Look at that.
Yeah, so if you go to the AfterBuzzTV.com, at the top you'll see a banner for the AfterBuzz TV store. Click on that, it'll take you directly to the store. You can see we have mugs, we have bags, we have shirts, baby onesies. I'm really
Baby
pushing
onesies?
the onesies.
Nice.
AfterBuzz babies.
Baby onesie.
So check it out and get your AfterBuzz swag on.
Nice.
Nice.
All right. Now we go to news.
Okay. Good.
I want to hear this. I see Lady Edith.
Yes.
Okay, we have a picture of Lady Edith, and Tammy will read the article. But look at the picture. I know it's going to be hard for obviously you're listening on download, but you've got to see a picture of the actress because she looks so much better in real life than she does as Edith, right?
Does.
Am I
She
right?
looks
Her
pretty.
haircut.
I just want to say thank God for makeup and hair color.
Yeah.
Because that is the difference here. Her name is Laura Carmichael, the woman who plays Edith, and she says she's very happy to play the dowdy sister on Downton Abbey. She says, Dowdy Downton. She says, I think it would be so hard. I think it must be so hard to start your career with everyone going on about how gorgeous you are. To be in that bracket must be so pressurized. And the other benefit of it is that fans are surprised by how much better she looks, as we did. When they meet her, she says, I am so lucky to be doing this job, and I probably end up with more confidence than anyone because when people meet me, they say, oh, you're nowhere near as dowdy as we thought you are. Or, oh my God, you look so fat and old on TV, but you're not like that at all.
So that's the key. Okay, so be fat and
Ugly on
dowdy
camera.
on camera. And
Exactly.
Not so much,
And, O'Brien has got a lot
yeah,
going on
that's
her
true.
in
For
that
sure.
category as well.
Yeah.
She says, I think they think I'm really going to be thrilled to hear that, and I just smile and say thank you. Okay. Then the other thing that I have is, if you get a chance, I tweeted this a few minutes ago. Sesame Street did a little spoof on Downton Abbey, and it's called Upside Downton Abbey, and it's very sweet and very fun. And I tweeted out the link, so if you want to see it, or you can just Google it.
Or have your kids see it.
Upside Downton Abbey. The thing that I'm most impressed by is the costumes, of course, because they're so good at Sesame Street and Children's Television Workshop, making all of the costumes be so amazing. They've got some pretty.
Downton is because everybody's doing a stand-up on Downton. I mean,
Oh my
Saturday Night Live, Jimmy Fallon. I mean, it's all over the place.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Now Sesame Street, so you know you've made it.
It's not for it's not for the grown-up
No,
crowd.
it's for
kids,
right?
but it's
as
it's
it
not,
should be for Sesame Street.
It's not hilarious as some of the ones that we saw, but it's very sweet and very fun. And if you know Downton Abbey, it's very cute. So you can show that to your
Can't
kids.
wait to see that.
Whenever it's on Fallon, I like Downton 6B, I think is what they call it.
Yeah, I don't know. But look for Upside Downton Abbey. Dan Stevens has been playing on Broadway in The Heiress with Jessica Chastain. And the producers, this is how it's put in the papers. It says that Dan Stevens' Broadway debut is officially a hit after producers revealed that the show is going to make its money back. They've recouped their $3 million cost by the time the show closed, which I believe was yesterday.
And that's a hit.
The play, The Heiress, played 27 previews and 117 regular performances. It's a revival based on a Henry James novel, Washington Square.
Yeah, reviews came in, and he did the ones that I had heard of. He did a good job. So good for him.
I think it's funny that they call that a hit.
Yeah.
They completed their run. Ooh, we're a hit. And I know
well, maybe
Broadway's
they're going on a tour. I don't know what the
Yeah, possibly. That's true. That's a good point. They don't mention that in the article, but they do say that I suppose Breaking Even is considered a hit on Broadway now because it's so easy to flop.
Well, especially if it's not a musical.
Well, yeah. Well, and musicals are even so much more expensive than that. You've really got to make a lot of money on those. But I think perhaps calling it a hit might be an overstatement. Would be my editorial opinion.
Okay.
Also, we haven't talked about it on the air, but there's been a lot of talk about Dan Stevens is going to be playing Julian Assange of WikiLeaks in the biopic, and Benedict Cumberbatch is
Sherlock Holmes. Marissa knows as well.
Is in the film as well, which may have been part of the reason why there was some of the
Oh, I see, the little scuttlebutt between Downton Abbey and his
show.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah, so maybe that was because they were both playing together and
friendly rivalry, perhaps.
Perhaps.
Okay, interesting.
So that's
and
all
that
we
fulfills
have
our news
for
this
news
week,
and gossip this week.
All right, so let's talk about predictions so we can get on to what next may happen.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
I not so much have this as a prediction, but I think it would be entertaining to have Kieran come back.
Oh, yeah. But he certainly stirred the pot.
Right. Because we haven't really seen someone come in and kind of challenge things from the outside as
like
much.
Tom did originally, and now that he isn't that. It's
so I think it would be interesting to see Kieran come back. I don't know that he will. Like I said, I'm not so much predicting that, but I think it would be entertaining.
Downton's not Downton without a drunken gorilla.
No, indeed. That's
so
it.
we see more of him. All right. So you hope he'll come back.
I do hope he'll come back.
Okay.
And I think we are going to see Edith have some interesting things happen with her.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well,
I agree with that.
Right. So but
I wanna
it's
see
not
her
gonna be
in love,
smooth sailing,
poor girl.
right? Yeah, she's probably gonna love it, but
Poor Edith.
exactly, something's got to happen, right? So what's posed? What might happen? So obviously, it can't be smooth sailing with her. Whatever
She's
the love
gonna be
interest
spending
is.
more time in London.
Yes. Well, and even we saw the coming up.
No, but these people don't see coming ups. We see coming ups on our feed, but they don't have coming ups on.
Oh, they don't?
No, they don't on PBS.
Oh.
No.
There we go.
So don't talk about the coming
I
ups.
won't then. Let's move on then. Well, then, what do we think? Bates and Anna, of course, will have their little place.
Yeah.
Yes, they'll get one of the cottages.
Do you think Thomas is gonna? Well, obviously Bates will take over his old position. Is Thomas gonna get booted? Because let's face it, Bates is now here. Thomas has already got a big strike against him because he held the whole thing with Carson.
There's room in jail now because Bates is out. So maybe Thomas is going to go into jail.
So is he gonna be gone?
If they thought Ethel being a former prostitute was
Right.
a scandal, I think even though Carson said don't
Yeah.
speak to anybody about this,
Right.
I think there being
So far it's contained.
an abomination to nature in the
Yeah.
house that would
The
be.
fundamental laws. He's broken the fundamental laws.
I can't see him sticking around because I can't see Carson abiding him being there
Mm-hmm.
more than anything. Even if it is contained, I can't see Carson being okay with that.
Ah.
That's that because he would just think it's going to come up with every cute footman who comes
Right.
through the house.
Sure.
So I think Thomas is going to be gone very soon.
Ooh.
That's what I'm saying.
So, and it wouldn't be great to see Tom actually work the land and have it become profitable? Would that become
Yes.
Marxist, as he was called, the Marxist turns a profit?
makes Downton good and saves Downton.
But he's doing it for the collective because everybody will survive that way, right?
Yes.
right.
So in a way,
absolutely.
it works.
His evil plot
Yes.
is becoming to fruition.
Yes, I like it.
Okay.
All right.
Any
All
other
right.
predictions? Anybody?
That's it.
You
I'm
got it?
staying
You good?
out of
Marissa,
it.
you got anything? Okay, thank you. All right, well, we rolled out. Alina, let everybody know where they can find you.
On Twitter at Alina23. Alina spelled ALINA.
You can find me at Tamara Berg on Twitter. Also, my at Twitter. My website is tamaracentral.com.
And Marissa?
You can find me on Glee and Once Upon a Time and on Twitter at Serafini TV.
Okay, and Tamara, you also have another show here. You're doing Justified?
Oh, I'm also doing Justified and Smash.
And
I'm
Lena?
doing Project Runway
Nice.
Thursday nights.
Okay, and I'm doing Justified as well. Tamara?
And if you're in the U.S. and get the Hallmark Channel, you can watch me on Home and Family tomorrow. I'll be on.
Oh,
Doing a little
there you
crafting.
go. Oh, and go to serialbuddies.com. Our trailer is there for our movie that's coming out. Our release is in March.
Yep.
And the trailer's out now, so go to serialbuddies.com. You can also go to AfterBuzz TV and find it there. And where else can they find it? Anybody else, Marissa?
We've given it enough
yeah,
choices.
It's
That's
on
enough?
YouTube.
YouTube, there you go. It's all
AfterBuzz
over the
TV.
place, so take a look at that.
The
as well.
Adventures of
Not-
Serial Buddies.
Not really the same audience as Downton, but you might find it interesting. All right. Well, on behalf of everybody here, we want to thank you very much for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.
Next time.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later. Cup of tea.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.